p.m. Before we begin the meeting, this public meeting will be conducted pursuant to Governor Eric J. Holcomb's executive orders 20-02, 20-04, 20-08, and 20-26, and Governor Holcomb's exercise of his powers under Indiana's Emergency Management and Disaster Law, Indiana Code 10-14-3. Additional information regarding the meeting is provided in the annex published with this agenda. So, thank you all for joining this evening. We'll give Colleen a couple more seconds to call in. Roger, do we have any attendees that request to be noted in the audience? Oh, we might have lost Roger.
There has been one gentleman, a Brian D'Angelo, that's been trying to call in, Sanjay.
Okay.
He was having the same problem that Colleen was. He could see us, but he couldn't be heard, so he was going to try it again.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
And certainly, Sanjay, we could ask if any attendees would like to be known and ask them to raise their hand, and we can read their record in.
Huh.
Colleen's muted on her phone too, she's saying.
I do see an individual with a first name only named Max has raised their hand. Without any further identity, will be limited on what record we can provide of that name.
Maxwell Miller.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Okay. Well, can we provide any guidance to Colleen on how we unmute her from phone and laptop? Zoom user, so I don't know the ins and outs of that. So.
Oh. Said she was muted by the host.
What happened to Roger?
Roger, yeah.
I do know that Zoom has not been friendly to him either. I know he's trying to dial back in.
Right. So from a legal standpoint, Brian, and we have a quorum, but if Colleen's audio doesn't work, can we recognize a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Or
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, let's go ahead and begin. Thank you all for your patience. Wayne, if you could provide the reports for the month.
Certainly happy to do so here. In front of you this evening, wherever you may be, is a list of actions that are happening in the Zionsville 106th Street TIF, the reindeer properties with a commercial remodel permit. We mentioned this before. You're all pretty much aware by now that the town of Zionsville has torn down the buildings at 390 South Main. AES Restaurants has secured their Plan Commission approval for the new facility on Bennett Parkway. Medical office buildings under construction on Bennett Parkway as well. RE Apartments continues to move through their finalization. Blackacre continues to work on their project. Next project on your list, 106th and Bennett. An occupancy permit was issued for one of the tenant spaces at 10650 Bennett Parkway. Hotel Tango, which we'll be talking about this evening, is moving through their commercial permitting and is currently underway with their project. Trico, another item on your list. The remodel is underway, and Mr. Michael Cole is continuing to work on his project on 30 North Main. Also, actions happening, 421 TIF, 300 South, Appaloosa Crossing continues to move through its earthwork and is now moving dirt with a grading permit being issued. Creekside Corporate Park, working on property maintenance, property marketing, and another project we'll be talking about this evening is stormwater mitigation, and Creekside Corporate Park Community Development Corporation is working through the seasonal maintenance as it's typically doing. Any questions? I'm happy to entertain them.
Hearing none, thank you, Wayne. Next on our agenda is old business, approval and adoption of the minutes from July 27, 2020, our regular meeting.
I'll move that the minutes be accepted.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, okay. Roger or Wayne, can you do a roll call for us for adopting the minutes?
I will take care of that, Sanjay. Ken Ezra,
Yes.
Kate Swanson. Colleen Hiddle approves the minutes. Cindy Madrick,
Yes.
Sanjay Patel.
Yes, thank you.
Very good, 4-0 approval.
Thank you. Next on our list is update on the status of the RL development agreement for lots 12, 13, and 14 of Creekside Corporate Park. Wayne or Brian, can you provide an update on our current status with negotiating and discussions with RLL?
Shouldn't we congratulate him first?
Yeah.
Yes, they had a great race.
Quite a race.
Yeah, Mr. Chris, you want to walk us through the current status?
Yes. So the RDC subcommittee that has been charged with negotiations with RDC, we responded to the RLL draft that we received earlier in the month. We also had a meeting with our RLL's team to discuss some bigger picture concerns. And so we delivered a responsive draft last week, and at least the preliminary feedback is RLL believes that we are close to an agreement. There's probably a couple other items that we all need to talk about, but hopefully the next meeting of the RDC, there will be an agreement to consider in front of the full redevelopment commission.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Yeah, we didn't expect to hear anything last week, obviously.
Right.
They were a little busy.
For Cindy or Colleen, I know Colleen, you're unable to unmute, but do you have any questions on how we progressed in regards to coordinating with RLL and moving that process along?
Now, I presume if there's anything, controversial, it would be brought up with us. But I mean, I trust Brian. I mean, I think it's just going through the paces.
Right. Okay. Well, just, it's moving forward. And if you do have any questions anytime, please feel free to contact one of us. Great. Any other old business?
I think there was a question from somebody in the public if the RLL agreement had anything to do with water erosion issues, and I don't believe that it does. So,
Correct. Okay. New business. Community Development Corporation recommendation for a grant. Forza Jackson IG, the Hotel Tango property, and redevelopment.
Yes, Sanjay, I'm happy to introduce the item. You do have a few members in the audience that can speak to the project as well. But your Community Development Corporation heard a grant request from Jackson IG, Forza Jackson IG, and they are the redevelopment entity that is redeveloping the site known as the South Village Station, formerly your Zionsville Pizza King. The site address is 10615 South Zionsville Road. This project has met various boards and commissions with the town, such as the Plan Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals. And specifically, the project is seeking a grant to assist with the total facilitation of the project. The project itself is a property that currently is on a septic system, is served by a well. There are some other challenges that they're working through, and with bringing additional life into this building and with this investment. The group has proposed a grant request. Your Community Development Corporation heard that request on July 28th, was supportive of the request, but did outline some phasing and some metrics to meet related to the awarding of the specific funding components. But the total grant amount was $125,000. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions. But again, members of the development team are in the audience as well and can speak to any specific items.
Great.
So Wayne is on the items that they still, some metrics they have to meet. I'm sorry, could you go over that, please? I didn't quite understand that.
Certainly. So with the award, this Community Development Corporation is supportive of the totality of the ask, but is suggesting that any award be provided in phases as to allow the project to achieve certain metrics and then receive a certain amount of funding as a result of that. For example, they would in the recommendation memo provided dated August 11th, just reading that here into the record, if the project, once it completes its full install of the grease trap and has made its connections to public water and sewer, and termination as well has occurred as necessary, the first metric for the first $50,000 would be able to be dispersed. Phase 2 would provide for when the applicant reaches substantial completion on the exterior renovations, another $50,000 could be distributed. And then the final step, phase 3, would be with the issuance of a final certificate of occupancy. We are calling out that phase 2 and 3 could be combined in the same breath, if you will. But that's the metrics that we're speaking to.
And Wayne, are we voting on this tonight or not?
Correct. You have it's on your agenda. Your Community Development Corporation has provided this recommendation to you. Your body would then vote to approve this as presented, remand it back to the CDC for modification. Let's say you're looking, in some projects you've actually supported more money than what was proposed. Other projects has seen some adjustment maybe in the metrics of how that award is distributed. But yes, it is on your agenda tonight for discussion and disposition.
And Colleen, did you see Colleen's question, Wayne?
Yes. Colleen, it is a grant request.
And so Wayne, on the monies that, because I know so far we've done $10,000 so far this year. That's all we've done, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And this 125, can you tell us exactly what pot this one comes out of? I know it comes out of the same one as the 10,000, but what's in there and how we do that, please?
Correct. You have allocated $250,000 in your economic development incentive line item. This is a line item that every year you have various requests that sometimes exhaust that line item in totality. Sometimes that line item is left rather in rather good shape at the end of the year. This year we do not anticipate it being much left in it. You have your COVID-19 grant program that has commenced about a month and a half ago. That's seeing some pretty robust activity. We'll be discussing that with the CDC yet this month, with some projects coming to you for discussion next month, as such as the Leslie Jane grant of last month. So certainly we are watchful of those dollars and certainly watchful of those actions, just so that the monies are accounted for and we're not getting too far ahead of our skis, if you will. But yes, this grant request is $125,000 out of a $250,000 line item.
And so if we do this one, we're 135 out of 250, right?
Correct. And then, I mean, you do have a forecasting in this recommendation that allows for some phasing. So potentially this project could go into 2021's budget, which again, we're looking for the town council to, at a minimum, approve the number that's been approved every year, which is a minimum of $250,000 going into your incentive line item. So yes, it would be the number that you mentioned, but the recommendation does allow for some phasing, which gives a little bit of breathing room for some flexibility.
Great, thank you.
Certainly.
Wayne, do we know outside of this grant request, has the Hotel Tango development received any other considerations from town council for any other grants or tax deferrals?
I am not aware of any requests, and certainly those, I do not recall those being on the town council's agenda. Certainly members of the team are in the audience that can speak to any future contemplated plans.
It just makes me feel a little nervous. And Colleen, I know, spoke up that, you know, between two different grants, more than half of the nut's gone for the year. There's not been a cap in the past as to the max that a company can take and ask for.
There has not been an established limit. I do know that there has been a grant request of up to $400,000 and as small as you know, a few $1,000s. So this number is not a number you've seen in a while, but there has been grants that have been larger and some that have been smaller.
Sanjay, did you see Colleen's question about the contract?
Clawback? No, leave some budget. So Wayne, you had mentioned that because it's being phased in, not all of the 125 may be required this year. Is that correct?
That's certainly a potential, but at the same time, the project could be finished this year. We certainly can't guarantee that. We certainly also at the same time control when that distribution could happen, where that distribution could happen out of 2021's or 2021's budget. With the investment itself, the investment is tied to the building, and the structure is based upon the completion of certain very specific tasks, such as, again, the grease trap and the phasing of the issuance of the finalization of the actual exterior renovations. So there are some checks and balances.
Okay. And their water hookup is obviously with Citizens Energy. They did their sewer hookup. Again, going back to my previous question, do we know if full EDUs and full fees were paid for the sewer hookup?
I am not aware of any abatement or any reduction in the sewer hook-on fee. Certainly, Citizens Water would charge whatever their fee rate would be. I do know that with the existing well that's in place, unless Citizens mandates that well be capped, that well could remain in place for irrigation, even for potable use inside of the facility. Certainly, you know, the user that is moving in as a restaurant, you know, they're looking to have potable water to provide for their customers. But certainly the other tenant that's there, which is a dog washing, pet care facility, you know, there's nothing that would say they couldn't continue to use the well water to provide for that type of service.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
And Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong. Let's just say that both of those entities go away from that building at one time or another in the future. The things that we're paying for would still be there. I mean, the connection to the services for a future tenant, if something like that were to happen.
Correct. The metrics that the CDC is recommending are directly tying the specific increments of the award to a specific items being physically done to the building, such as the installation of the grease trap, physically altering the exterior of the building, enhancing the building, and then certainly and finally the finishing of the project itself and making the building ready for occupancy.
Anybody have an idea of what the full value of that step would be? Like, are we approving half of the value of what it's going to take for them to put that in, or?
I believe that number is about 20% of the construction costs. Adam D'Angelo is in the audience if you'd like to hear specifically from the development team.
Sure, Adam, if you have access to a mic and provide some additional information on the background of your project.
Yeah, I think we
The
can promote him.
CDC has it shown as 1.7 million all in total improvements. How much of that would go towards grease trap, water sewer hookup, and exterior refresh of that facility?
So, thank you. Again, my name is Adam D'Angelo. One of the owners of Forza Development. We're partnered with the Jackson Group on this particular venture. So, thank you for having me. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller on Zoom. So, forgive me. So, I think I'm off mute now. Or otherwise, I've been talking to myself. Yeah, the entirety of we acquired the building. For just over $750,000 and are putting another 800,000 plus into the building. Those are the total costs of the project, or additional improvements to the interior and exterior of the building for tenant improvements, as well as exterior and infrastructure improvements are exceeding 800,000. Of the infrastructure of the use of proceeds for this particular grant, it is right at about 20% of the infrastructure costs is the cost. So, you know, our project budget for infrastructure to extend the water and sewer lines and to install the grease trap is almost a quarter of that particular budget. So north of actually it's over 250,000. So the request is half. That's a long-winded answer, but.
Sure.
Wayne, do we have any idea? And thank you, Adam. I don't know if there's any other questions for him. I don't want to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Wayne, do we have any other idea of projects coming down the pipeline that are asking for grants?
Yes, we have several projects that are in queue that are seeking COVID-19 relief. I believe there's at least 2 that will be discussed at a very near future CDC meeting. I know Roger can speak in more depth as to he's been tracking personally each one of those as to where we're at, but I know we have at least 2 that are on their way.
Do we have an idea how much money they're asking for?
Roger, do you want to speak to that, please?
Yes, I'll be glad to. This coming Thursday morning, we have scheduled another CDC meeting where we will be reviewing 3 requests. Those 3, each, the total of those 3 is going to be right around 50,000. And I know that we have also received inquiries from about 6 other businesses within the downtown district that have just requested information on the program, but they have not yet submitted anything for consideration.
Wayne, I have a question. Let's say we go over our 250 for the year. Do we have the ability to put more money in, or is that it? We can't go over that 250. What's our? Since I've been on the RDC, I've not seen this amount of interest in, and obviously, you know, unprecedented times right now. But yeah, what's our limit?
Well, your limit is certainly your budgetary limit of 250,000. Certainly, there could be an additional appropriation proposed and considered, and by the town council. That's certainly an option for you within your specific fund for this economic development area. And certainly you're right. This is an unprecedented time. The requests that are coming in are, looking to assist in sustaining these brick and mortar businesses that are within your TIF district. This particular incentive request that's in front of you is a very much more traditional type of request, where it's a project where they're looking to for some assistance related to how to, with their efforts in breathing additional life and new life into a building. There's very specific development costs that they've incurred and to protect, where there's better enhancements to protect the environment, the town's infrastructure, and other types of benefits. And that's where how this is a more traditional ask than your COVID ask that you're seeing and will see here in the near future.
Adam, I have a question for you. What's your timeline? Let's say, for example, that we grant you the full 125 and you get it as you meet your metrics. But what is your timeline for completion of your project?
Excellent question. Yeah, Alt Construction, which is also another Zionsville company, is our general contractor, and we just went through our timeline today, and it looks like we're on track to be done likely by the end of December. It takes another 30 to 45 days for Hotel Tango to get their operations fully online.
Do you foresee? I'm sorry, Adam. Do you foresee?
Okay.
Do you foresee the using the full 125 in this fiscal year, or do you see some of it coming out in 2021?
Yes. So yeah, it's funny, and I'll say this because it is. I think it's important to say. We went into this endeavor and this project. We've always wanted to do what we felt like was hopefully a significant difference-making project. And this happens just to be positioned at a gateway down there on the south side. And so we know it's very special for us, but also hopefully a project that the town, can feel proud that they participated and partnered on. But, as we got into this process, and Wayne educated us on the program and what was specific eligible use of those funds, we thought, yeah, this would be great. I mean, it'd certainly help defray some of our construction costs. Costs are already pretty high anyway on our other new construction and renovation projects. However, as we got further along in the process, we realized, well, yeah, we actually need this to get this thing done the way it needs to be done. And a lot of that is just making the connections that were necessary and capping the historical, environmentally challenged, I'm going to say, septic field, et cetera. So I think we're mitigating a lot of risk, both for the environment and also for the community. And I think the last thing I wanted to say, if it's okay, is a part of this getting this building done is also retaining 5+ jobs and a very healthy operation and Positively Canine. They were concerned, obviously, when we acquired the building, that their space was going to go away or they were going to get pushed out, and we certainly did not want to do that to them at all. In fact, they've re-signed their lease, and a significant part of what we're doing to the exterior, but also to the infrastructure, they will benefit from as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All I would say, this is for the board, and I've been yakking a lot, but since I've been on the RDC, I can't remember a time where there's been so much want for these grants. And I would say many times that in the past, we've not done anything in a particular year, meaning not that the 250 rolls over, I get it, but we haven't touched that budget many years in the past. So, if we were to go over, and we have 3 requests in the pipeline and maybe 6 more coming down the road, I get it, but I kind of feel like, these are unprecedented times, and we kind of have to, I think we have to do a little bit more than what we've done in the past.
I would agree, Ken. And I would like to, the improvements that the Tango development will provide for the community as, our southern border into really, into the village area. That area has been something that the town and town folks have been wanting to improve for years. And we have a great opportunity with, a solid tenant that is investing in our community. So I do appreciate that. I would be a little concerned on, these other asks that are coming in are going to be smaller in nature. They're going to be quick hit, more impactful, those $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 requests, because those are for existing Zionsville businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic. So I want to be sure that we're not relying upon town council to approve additional funds, and we can provide that safeguard for those smaller businesses that have been here in our community for quite some time. So I do believe the $125,000 is warranted, but we could potentially phase it in, or we could adjust the timeline that the CDC has recommended in terms of phase 2 and phase 3 being at the time of the temporary certificate of occupancy, and possibly just tie it to a date at the later of the two, and pick a date in January for the phase 2 and 3, the later of the January date or the temporary certificate of occupancy if there's a delay in their project. This manner, we are providing that commitment as a community to this new development, but we're still protecting the funds that we have available for the smaller asks that we're going to have, that we can quickly, the CDC will quickly review, entertain, and recommend to the RDC, so we can make that impactful grant to the local existing companies.
Pauline, I know you can't necessarily talk to us, but what Sanjay said, does that maybe answer or help answer some of what you were asking about leaving money available?
And for the group here, certainly following Sanjay's idea about the date, another way to frame this a little bit differently is to modify the recommendation and indicate that the disbursement of the monies identified in phases 1, 2, and 3 will occur within 60 days of submittal of an invoice. That way you're throwing that buoy a little bit farther down the road and giving some additional breathing room. And a hard date is also a good option.
Sure.
Certainly just building in a little bit more flexibility, and a 60, 90 day, 45 day, just whatever works for whatever works for your group here.
Right. Yeah, if we can build in a strategy where it doesn't impact our 2020 dollars, I am definitely in favor of providing support to the Tango development.
I agree. I think both are equally as important. And if we can keep $100,000 at least or more, that gives 10 different places, 10,000 each. And as impactful as the 100 plus will be to you, Adam, 8 or 10,000 can keep somebody open, and that's important as well. So I think that's a great solution, Sanjay.
So I guess I'll move that we approve the 125 under the conditions that each stage is put forth with either a specific date or some type of time frame disbursement. Does that, or do we just need to do one of those, Sanjay?
I think, because this recommendation is coming from the CDC, I'd just like to send back our ideas and allow them to how that looks.
Okay.
Obviously, phase 1 is payable if this is approved. phase one would be payable now because the grease trap and the sewer and water connections have been completed. And then really for phase 2 and 3, we could put a date in fiscal 21, or we can just, or can we, Wayne, just put after January 1 and upon completion of and receipt of the temporary certificate of occupancy from the town of Zionsville, the CDC shall reimburse for invoices submitted by the development.
Well, what we can do here is take this back. I mean, you can table this and we can take this back to the CDC and talk through these couple different ideas for them and have them propose something back to you. Certainly if it's a hard date or a, you know, a sliding window within so many days of a completion of a date that's affixed to a certificate of occupancy, and have the CDC provide you some hard information.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can hear you. Yay.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
So Wayne, do we need to take a vote on that, or is that just our recommendation back to the CDC and we revisit this next month?
I have one more question for Adam.
Sure, go ahead.
What does that do to your timeline?
It certainly does not help it, but we went ahead and got the project underway. We didn't want to have a slowdown, but I think, you know, certainly we're grateful, obviously, to be in a position to even be able to apply. So we're grateful for this to be heard. I certainly like the idea with it being structured, if necessary, for a portion to extend and to be dispersed accordingly to extend to the next fiscal year, but also understand and respect how you guys would like to structure that. And it is important that other Zionsville businesses are able to come and apply as needed.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
So certainly,
So,
Sanjay.
Wayne, I have one more question for you.
All right, go ahead.
Obviously, the CDC and the RDC would like to maximize, you know, with the pandemic, we want to maximize the available funds each year, especially when there's a need. Say they get their temporary certificate of occupancy in the end of November, first week of December, and we know we have funds available in the grant program. I'd like to be able to have the option to utilize that in 20 if possible. A couple of different things at you, but if there's funds available, we want to maximize and not lose those dollars and send them back to town council.
That's a good idea.
So we could say, you know, we could make, if with the request or the invoice payable within 60 days, if we receive an invoice on December 15th and we have the capacity, then we can still pay it in 20, or we can allow it to push into 21. Would that be feasible?
I mean, certainly we can do that. I mean, there are tools within the financial acumen that allows us to encumber dollars. I don't know if the town will be. It's every year you decide, do you want to do that as a town? We do have a new CFO, new leadership. I don't know if we'll use that tool like we've used in the past. But regardless, if there are dollars that are left in that particular line item, definitely looking to earmark those is definitely a possibility.
So what I'm asking, Wayne, is I had suggested after a January 1 date. Let's scratch that. And in the event we need to spend now in 20, we can spend now in 20 if we receive an invoice on December 15th and there are funds available in the account. So instead of saying a date after January 1, which if this is approved, then it ties us to that January 1 date. And if our grant program has 50K left on December 27th, we want to write them the check now. Do you see what I mean?
Understood.
Okay.
With the, yeah, I mean, it can be worked that way as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I'm of the opinion, why wouldn't we just approve the 125 now then?
Right, but the payment of it needs to be able to slide. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we can put that in the language of the grant, correct?
Well, I think what you're looking for is your community development corporation to finalize this and bring this back to you
Okay.
with more specificity.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay. Next one up is the Christopher Burke engineering recommendations for Creekside Corporate Park. The wetland assessment and mitigation, which is item 1, and then item 2 is lot 14 wetland permitting. These are 2 separate items. Christopher Burke provided a study for item 1, where they looked at removing a pipe and the impacts of that. And then item 2 is a small wetland on lot 14, which is one of the lots that RLL is considering as part of their development. So Wayne, if you could give us an update and any proposal or decision we need to make on that.
Certainly, I'll walk this group through the language of the study, and certainly Dr. Miller is here this evening. He is an adjoining property owner with interest and with interest in the outfall, if you will, from that pipe. So as this group recalls, Christopher Burke was engaged to assist in identifying specific wetlands that are on the property, have known to have been on the property, and certainly they've done that as a part of their assessment, as documented in the paperwork. As a second part of that effort, they were to study and model the pipe that is on the northeast corner of the property, so lot 5. This pipe was not installed by the town. It's a circa, I think, early 1990s installation by Dow Chemical. It routes drainage water from the apartment complex to the east of the town of the RDC property, and then it enters and heads underground, and then outlets just about 57 feet before you get to the north property line, and then the waters meander through Dr. Miller's property and ultimately to Eagle Creek. And in studying this pipe and looking at potential ideas, one idea that's all we've always had is, what would it take, what would it look like if we ripped out the pipe and installed more of a traditional pond to handle the waters that are being created off-site beyond the town's property. We do have some water that's draining from lot 12 that potentially finds its way into this pipe, but be all that information as presented this evening. One of the items that's in the packet are 3 separate alternatives, and those alternatives, and Sanjay and Roger can as well speak to these items. When we met with Christopher Burke, they covered in detail what it would take to facilitate those types of ponds. And the largest pond that was being proposed did lower the surface discharge rate of the outfall somewhat. It would work to be about $250,000 worth of dirt movement facilitated through the pond, as drawn in your packet. Certainly there would be other costs beyond the $250,000, but certainly your floor of that conversation is just the moving of the dirt would be the number that's documented. And certainly Sanjay or Kent Are there any other specific details I need to touch upon?
So Wayne, I think you've covered it. Roger was in attendance of that meeting as well. Roger, if you have any other input there, I'm scrolling through the report right now.
Yes, Sanjay and I had a chance to meet with Sarah Wright and Matt Mead, both of Christopher Burke Engineering, with him back in early August out on site. And it was at that meeting, they presented really 3 different scenarios that were included in your packet. And again, the numbers that they have presented are really just the bare bones basic for the initial earth for the dirt moving. There would be additional fees on top of that.
Correct. And these, you know, give some background on this. The benefit of, you know, some of the alternatives they've presented are primarily for the downstream property owner. It does provide some additional storage for development in Creekside, but it's not that significant when it comes to what it's adding for the RDC and for Creekside lots. They did have some suggestions in their report on maybe some alternatives that the downstream property owner could use to enhance and slow down the velocity of flows, but those would be outside of town-owned properties. One of their ideas was to create, you know, wetland. We have some wetland mitigation that we need to provide for the development of Creekside. And one of the options was to create that wetland mitigation on site. However, after further discussion of, you know, the cost of that, in addition to the 5-year growth and maintenance of it, there are in lieu credits that are available for wetland mitigation that weren't available when Creekside Corporate was developed. And I believe they gave a cost of per acre on that, correct, Roger? Or they gave us a range?
Yes, they did give us a range. I'm sorry, I was responding to a question as you were speaking, so I didn't pick up all of your question there, unfortunately, Sanjay.
Christopher Burke, they gave us a cost for wetland mitigation, the in lieu fees, right?
Yes.
Which are in line with developing or less costly than developing our own wetland on this property.
That is correct. That is how I understood their presentation.
Right.
Yeah, I believe a wetland credit is for an acre is in the $40,000 range. And I believe we have about 0.6 of an acre of wetlands that we need to provide in the form of mitigation.
Right. So at this moment, it's my recommendation to, you know, have the Chris Burke report as due diligence that the town has completed to help mitigate potential drainage issues downstream. One comment that the folks from Burke mentioned were that part of the downstream properties erosion issue is because of the steepness of the grade on his property. Even if we slow down the flow leaving our parcel, the creek heading towards his property and on his property is creating that velocity, not the flow that's coming from Creekside Corporate. So Roger and Wayne, I think it's worth having this conversation with the property owner. I'm more than happy to join you. And we can even bring on Burke on a call to share the information we found. And
that would be that would be my next suggestion. Certainly, Dr. Miller is here this evening, and certainly we can talk about any specific items that you would like this evening, or we could have a separate call, bring Christopher Burke into that call and really work through the nuts and bolts of this conversation. It's fairly technical, as you as an engineer know, and we know from working with this for a number of years now. So certainly employing your expertise as well as Burke's expertise, and certainly if there's an off-site opportunity here where we take on a project and there are other elements that are leveraged off-site to make enhancements to that property, certainly that's an option. I'm not certain legally if the RDC can expend its dollars outside of its district on a residentially zoned piece of property. That's a different conversation, but we can certainly vet that with our legal counsel. But certainly what we'll do here is a long-winded way of saying, let's set up a call like you're suggesting, and we'll move that ball forward.
Sure. Dr. Miller, can we help facilitate that and coordinate with Dwayne for some available times?
I will allow Dr. Miller to speak here.
Oh, okay. I see him chatting on the chat, that's why.
Dr. Miller, are you available? Can you speak?
He's speaking now, but we're not hearing.
Yeah. Right.
Well, let's just work with finding some times where we can either meet on site or we can have a Zoom call, however works best for everyone involved.
We'll work to set that up.
Okay, great. And then item 2 is there is a small wetland on lot 14, and in discussion with the Burke engineers is to roll that into the mitigation that Creekside Corporate is already liable for from the development, and add that small piece of wetland to our in lieu fee for mitigation, and get that off of the books. So if RLL moves forward, that's not an obstacle for them early on during construction.
Yes, Sanjay, that's a great summary, and certainly just to expand just a touch, that specific wetland was left in place simply because a future project would dictate if it could embrace that specific wetland as an amenity or if it needed to be remediated and mitigated and moved. In this particular case, we believe RLL is looking to have that mitigated. Therefore, we have started those steps to gain a cost estimate, to at least do a study, and then ultimately, as you outlined, Sanjay, wrap it into the overall scope of the mitigation efforts in Creekside.
Okay, great. Do we need to take any formal consideration for that?
I would recommend that we take a vote on approving moving forward with the proposal as offered, if it's supportable.
All right, so I'll move then that we move forward with the mitigation. Hopefully that's the correct verbiage of the wetlands for the RLL project and for Creekside.
Motion?
Second.
Motion a second. Roger, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Ezra?
Yes.
Ms. Hiddle?
Yes.
Ms. Madrick?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Is there any other business from the board?
Sanjay, I'll jump in. I've got just want to bring to your attention, and I know that I believe both Ken and you are aware that we late last week we saw a turn of the term sheet that Appaloosa Crossing has proposed back in early, I believe it was January, maybe early February, as they're working through the TIF conversation. Certainly, we look to have Crow, who I believe had an opportunity to look at it late last week as well. I believe the next step is to set a call up between legal counsel Heather James, others, Brian Christ, and certainly have Crow on the call, the school, RDC leadership, and certainly the applicant themselves to walk through next steps in preparation of having a discussion on that topic here at your September meeting. The other item I'd bring to your attention is every September we also have our annual invitation to taxing districts to listen to a report. And so we'll be looking to be prepared to facilitate that. State statute requires us to do that. There is no specific date in the state statute, but we've typically tried to stick with September to facilitate that opportunity. And that is all I have.
Great, thank you. All right. Other business, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Guys.
Motion second. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a
Have a
great
good
evening.
evening, everybody.
Thanks, Roger, for helping me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.